Welcome back to Never Watch Alone Again. I'm your host, Tim Lifeit, and boy, we are starting off with some fun stuff. Welcome to Fucked Up February, where we're going to be watching the most fucked up movies you've probably never heard of. I really hope for those of you listening out there have, because, we're about to get weird. And fittingly so, because by the time this is released, it will have been my birthday. I am now a man. I am now, how old am I? I think I'm 28. I think it's 28 or 27. You know, that's the thing, because joining me here is Sean, as always. But
Apparently
Sean,
time stopped for you because of the horrors of 2020.
yeah, for real. No one has any sense of time anymore. But but I think you can agree, Sean, like after you turn like 22, 25, somewhere in there, you just constantly forget how old you are because nothing matters anymore.
A little bit. A little bit.
Well, for my special birthday episode, we are watching probably one of the great masterpieces, underground cinema masterpieces, and by far one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of movies. I mean, you should know me by now. Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain. So,
I would agree. It is definitely one of the. I will put the caveat there. It's one of the weirdest narrative movies you will ever see.
yes, that is a very big distinction, and I feel like that's probably a better thing because there's a lot of experimental movies that just have no shape or form, whereas this one we can actually kind of talk in like a cohesive semi-cohesive manner,
Right.
at least as
But,
long as
yes.
this will allow.
Because it's always kind of a tightrope there. It's like, one of the weirdest movies ever. Oh, it was an experimental film, so of course it's just weird for weird's sake. Like,
Yeah,
weird narrative film is its own special area of weirdness that is to be enjoyed and
and relished. And honestly, we need more films like these, because we're going to be doing, February is always a notoriously short month, hence why February babies like myself, they are the best babies because we are the rarest. But that said, there's going to be a lot of weird movies to come this month, and I just want to say, because I'm going to be saying it all month, so you're going to get sick of me saying this all month, so I'll just start. But we need more movies like this. We need more weird shit that, like something that only as a fucked up critter, such as a human being, could conjure up. We need more, because that's the other weird thing about these weird movies is they're all steeply rooted in humanity, and that's also something we need more of these days. Especially in light of that year. But so talking about the Holy Mountain, I'm actually curious how you first heard about this, because it might be different than mine, but I want to hear all about it.
Oh, you will be quite surprised how I first saw this.
Please tell.
For those of you that don't know, Tim and I met when he was still in school at BG through him doing some work.
And
But
for
then
those
he
of you listening, that's Bowling Green University in Ohio.
But then he started coming out to the club where at the time I was a photographer
Yep.
for an industrial night, and the head DJ there would like to, he was also known as the visual terrorist and would put a lot of weird messed up stuff on the screens. And one night he started playing The Holy Mountain. I had never seen this movie, but I was heavily intrigued.
Yes.
And went out and found a copy to download and watch, because I'm like, I have to know what this is. So that's
And-
how I came to it.
Now, what was your first experience with it? Because
Um,
that's the thing about this movie. It is an experience.
My first experience, honestly, was like kind of baffling, because like it's so, as a background stuff going on in a club where you're not hearing the audio and you have all this, pounding music going on, there's so much weird stuff happening that it's like, okay, like, I'm interested. Then you start watching it and you're like,
what
are they doing here? Like, they're playing this seriously. Like, okay, I get your play. Like, what is the point? And then it's like, it's switching from philosophy so quickly. And so I'm just like, oh my. Like, as somebody who has had, who is religious and had a religious upbringing that I've, definitely had some departures from at different points in my life. But again, still, watching something of this nature was just like, what?
Yeah,
and then
for real.
The absolute brilliance at the culmination of it. So
yeah. Oh man, dude, the ending is just one of those things. Honestly, out there for those because we tend to spoil things constantly. So if you haven't seen it, highly recommend that you just go out, watch it, and then come back here and watch it again, and maybe you'll get something. Because I guarantee you, your first time watching this, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck did I just watch? Someone talk to me about this." Then that's when you come back here. We'll talk to you about it, and then you'll be like, "Ah." So, but yeah. So I'm trying to think when I first heard about. I think the first time I heard about this, I didn't hear about this movie specifically first. I heard about Alejandro Jodorowsky first, because if you ever seen the brilliant documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune, where it talks about his failed attempt at bringing Frank Herbert's novel to the screen back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I can't recommend that documentary enough. It's not just for film lovers, but for anyone who loves science fiction. The book that him and his producers and Mobius, he actually got the French comic book artist Mobius to work on it. The storyboarded film book that they made is probably the Ark of the Covenant of science fiction out there. I really should. I probably should do like an entire episode on this because it's amazing. I guess I will have to do that as like a mini episode later in the future. But that said, I saw his history and whatnot. Like he did El Topo and then he did the Holy Mountain. And I was beyond fascinated with this guy. I thought he was a mad genius. Even to the point where comparing him almost to like a Chilean modern day filmmaker Salvador Dali in all of himself, because he was really that weird and crazy enough he actually met Dali to work on Dune. But again, another story. So I actually wound up getting El Topo and the Holy Mountain, and it just sat on my shelf for a little while. And one evening, I looked at my fiance, my wife, just like, "You want to watch a really fucked up, weird movie?" And she's like, "Yeah! Let's watch it." And so I sat it down, and we proceeded to watch this thing, and we were just flabbergasted at the absurd imagery and sounds and presentation. We didn't understand any of it, but we were having a hell of a good time.
Oh yes.
We didn't understand why we were having a good time necessarily, but we were just enjoying the weirdness for almost weirdness sake. And it wasn't until later that we found out.
I would like to direct to anyone joining us at home. Pretty much every fucked up movie out there, if you search on the internet, you can find a drinking game to go with it. So if you need to pick it up a notch, have some fun.
With this movie, I would recommend Shrooms, because it's
you're not wrong.
Weird. I'd get some uppers, not the downer, because this is this is where it gets really trippy and
uppers,
fun.
Downers, screamers, laughers.
This is where it gets really trippy and fun, you guys. What, like Coachella? It's a lot like Coachella.
Wait. I don't remember Jeff Goldblum showing up at this.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if they remade this and he did?
Oh.
I really hope that wasn't They never remake this because this is
No.
such a unique
No.
thing. But yeah, so we watch it, and when we got to the end, and like I said, spoilers. If you haven't seen, this is your final warning. Go fucking watch it now, and then come back to us. But at the end, when they just turn to the camera and be like, "This is a film. Go out and live your life," I'm like, "Was this movie an entire just one giant troll?" And in a weird way, in retrospect, it kind of was. So...
Well, and what I love about it though is that, like, again, while you say it should not be remade, you have to think about the time. I mean, this came out in the early '70s. This is a time, it's like the Beatles had their guru phase. Like, the hippie movement was, closing out
swing.
and finishing. So it's like, this is coming on the heels of this time where there was this hyper sense of spiritualism attached to nothing going on in this country.
Yeah. And plus, we were literally just in the final stages of the Vietnam War by this point, too.
Yes.
And although, again, I wouldn't try to tie too much of this movie with the United States history, just because it was made by a Chilean, and it is a predominantly Mexican film, even though it is mostly in English. Or rather,
well, for sure, but I'm just saying
that kind of culture.
The Beatles are not inherently American. I
mean, of course not. They're British.
International sensation, and when you look at what was going on with music, which was huge around the world, you also had the Stones doing their whole like satanic majesty thing, and you had all these different aspects everywhere in pop culture of embracing a level of spiritualism, but for no point.
Yeah,
like no
actually,
belief,
you're right.
No care, just like here it is. For
nihilistic
what?
Spiritualism is probably what it was, and nihilistic spiritualism, in a weird way, if you take spiritualism plus nihilism, that would equal absurdism, which is this movie.
Yeah, very much so.
So, yeah, should we get this this weird train a-rolling? Because this is probably, out of all the selection we have for this month, this one's probably the strongest, I think. Maybe. We'll see where we get there by the end of the month.
Oh, no, I definitely would say this is probably a front runner, and I think it's as we already kind of mentioned, I think it's a front runner for probably one of the most messed up narrative movies you'll ever watch. So.
Oh yeah, dude, totally. When I saw that my birthday was coincided with a date of publication for this, I'm like, I got to do a birthday movie, and if I'm gonna do one, I want it to be super fucked up and weird, and one that most people probably haven't heard of, and I want to draw attention to it because this shit needs to be seen. It's amazing. So that said. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I kind of doubt it if it is, but if you can find it on like what's the V, the fucking streaming service where you pay. Well, either way, any streaming services, if you can find it, and it's like $3-4, so you can find it on Redbox wherever. Just honestly, it's worth like. That little bit of money.
Interestingly enough, because we are recording this, a good month prior to it being released.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it is streaming on Flix Fling, and is available for rent on Amazon.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, so just like throw a couple bucks their way, or you can find a Blu-ray copy. I know there's like a couple areas around there. We're watching a Blu-ray rip of it. But that said, I hope you guys got a copy ready to go because we are starting this bad boy in 3, 2, 1, click. And right away, we're going to go on a ride. Dude, look at these. Now it actually dawns upon me that to do a commentary track of this movie is to take away from the spiritual essence of this in a very, because this movie is weirdly hypnotic, especially in this opening sequence.
So, interestingly, these movements are actually from a Japanese tea ritual.
Yeah. And you can kind of see that it is very ritualistic. He is like virtually every motion of the hand, the arms, everything, even down to his fingers, feels rehearsed as if taking steps in the ritual. And there's our title drop. But I actually want to talk to you, Sean, mostly about, because again, how this movie was made is not very interesting. Honestly, it was just, you know, one of the Beatles managers saw El Topo and decided, give this man all of the money he needs to make another movie, and this is the result. So it's less of about how it was made, and it's more of what the hell we're seeing. So I really want to know, what were your thoughts and feelings upon watching these images unfold before your eyes? Because what does all this mean, Sean? Uncle Sean, tell us what it means.
Well, that's just it. It's just like you're watching it and you're just kind of like, okay, there's chanting. There's obviously this idea of some kind of spiritualism going on, but as you said, okay, what does it mean? That's the enduring question of this movie when you're first watching it.
For real.
You're like, honestly, you're doing something, but I don't know what it means.
It's honestly, it feels like it's the design of this entire movie to ask, what do these images mean? Which is something we so don't do these days. You know? We are really visually sophisticated these days, but we are also simultaneously totally visually illiterate. And what I mean by that is, we are really great at creating these fantastical images, but thinking through what those actual images mean, not so much.
Right.
And this movie is the ultimate challenge to that ideology, because every single shot seems to be, you must fill in what this means. And you know what? A lot of people, because I know there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't know what this means. Like, it's too abstract. Like, you got to just say it. I just want to be entertained. Honestly, no, this movie does give you the benefit of the doubt. If you have some knowledge and you've got a little bit of not just history, but also spiritualism and religion and whatnot, like actual religious history and education, and not just, blind following or whatever, you can pick up on the ideas that they're trying to do here.
Oh, yeah.
This is cool. Because, like, even the opening, which we saw with those two women, was supposed to be a kind of stripping away of the vanity. Getting rid of the hair, the dresses, the nails, the jewelry, the makeup. Exactly. The Fool in the tarot, the Fool tarot card. I don't know how well your tarot card reading is. This is something that either my fiance or my sister would be into, because they do some tarot card readings, but I don't. Sadly, I'm not a witch. There's some really good Christ symbolism here.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, the protagonist here, not to be confused with Tennant's the protagonist, but he's very much supposed to be a Christ-like figure, not just in the way he looks, but also the way he's presented. Well, if this doesn't scream Jesus imagery, I don't know what does. So again, what do you think's going on here, Sean? Because I'm always thinking of, because again, we're both watching this in retrospect,
right?
So it's easier to understand when you've already seen it, but watching it unfold for the first time is like just yeah. Well, it's a spiritual acid trip. But as far as what I'm seeing here, I'm kind of seeing this as the Christ figure here, sort of like as what we were coming into this movie. We were the thief left for dead and ready, and every man, if you are, in need of a spiritual cleansing. Because I think that's what he's really all about. He's kind of supposed to be the audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
a bit.
Alejandro's looking at us like we are filthy and we need to be cleansed.
This transition is just like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know, right? There's a lot of that, though. A lot of that.
It's like now there's guns and gas masks
and shooting
oil.
Well, honestly, this is some military-industrial complex kind of symbolism here.
Oh yeah.
Along with the rich and powerful. I'm pretty sure that guy in the sunglasses was Donald Trump. But yeah, the flayed animals.
Borrowed from and later sold in a butcher shop.
Yes. Really is kind of amazing when you have, like, you know, you're given $800,000 to make a movie, and this is what you do with it.
Right.
And then you have tourists just kind of reveling in the destruction of the young.
I mean, I think it's just reveling in the destruction, period.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of it, because if you noticed how the kids were shot, or dressed, rather, the people who were shot, not like from a camera's perspective, I mean from like a gun, but they all look like students, like they're all student uniforms, almost.
Yeah.
And instead of bleeding blood, they bleed paint and have.
I mean, this right here is just like.
well, this is just kind of, to me, like, you know, again, reveling in the obscenities of what human beings are.
Yeah.
And how normal it is, really. Oh, and this bit. Now, this is a great history lesson for you guys. The Mexican conquest from the conquistadors, which was not very. It's not a child-friendly event, shall we say. It's often glossed over in history books, but it's kind of fucking awful. The peaceful, the peaceful Mayan people in Mexico at the time, as portrayed by the frogs and the toads. It's such a strange presentation, but boy, does this really get the history right, or at least the spiritual truth, I think.
I mean, but they weren't exactly peaceful. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I meant it's showing them through the history of Mexico, because the Mayan people were just kind of minding their own business, really. I mean,
yes.
what's society?
Yes, I would not call them peaceful, but they were definitely not evangelical, shall we say?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's what it is. Is like they're showing them to be. They're old, because remember, this movie was made in Mexico, so it's showing them to be their heritage. Because there's no, there's the conquistadors, but I think it's more in reverence to what they were. Because let's be honest, no human society is peaceful. Like not even the Native Americans were. And now here they come to occupy them, because this is another thing. Because again, this is more all about ideas than actual essence, I think. And do you actually know a whole lot about Jodorowsky's past?
Not a ton, no.
So apparently he moved around quite a bit, and because this dude, he's a lot older than you might know. He's actually going to be turning 92 this month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's been around a long time, and of course, like I said, he's Chilean originally, but he saw firsthand the imperial colonialism of American industrialism and the poor treatment by his people through the American military. So he's very much against idealisms of imperialism and colonialism, and this is his bizarre, vaguely Dalian expression of that distaste through the eyes of the conquistador invasion of the Mayans and of ultimately the destruction here. This is the one part that always bothered me. Like, they're literally blowing up live animals.
Yeah.
That's the one part that always kind of really bothered me about this movie. Of course, Jodorowsky is, while he's a mad genius, that essence of madness can still come into question every once in a while. Did you hear what he did on El Topo?
What specifically?
Well, even though he did tell exactly what his actress was going to do, there was a scene where it was just him, his leading actress, and his cameraman, and he basically raped her on camera. Now, granted, he told her... Huh?
I said hachi machi.
Oh, yes. But he essentially told her exactly what he was going to do, but either way, it was... he's got some weird ideologies of sexual aggression and rape because, it's not really because he's just like a weird perv or anything. It's just that I think he's just has this weird fucked up expression, as you can clearly see throughout this movie. That because he's actually the result of a physical rape from his mother through his father, and he was abused by his father throughout his childhood, and was usually comforted through kindness through his sister. So when you understand his upbringing and like the man himself, a lot of this shit makes sense, sort of. I don't want to condone or condemn him, but
right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it is what it is. But anyway, back to the symbolism of the movie. So what the hell do you think's going on here, Sean? Because this is another really great visual commentary, I think, on Christianity here.
Well, right. I mean, it's the exploitation.
Yes, the exploitation of the Christ figure, where, yeah, they have the image of Christ, but as you can see, they're about to mass produce it to a point where literally the meaning has no meaning anymore. The original intent is no more. And of course, because it's Jodorowsky, we're going to do it in the most weird, bizarre way ever. Do you understand the potato connection? Because that's still a mystery to me.
Not specifically, but I think it may have been like that's what they fermented to get the alcohol that got him drunk that they can now do this with. So it's like part of their whole process. Like they ferment that, they get them drunk, and then they can do stuff like this to then mass produce stuff.
Huh. Okay.
That was my personal take on it, but
yeah, because honestly,
there could be other symbolism I don't understand. That's part of the whole point of this movie is that there's so much symbolism stacked all on top of each other from all sorts of religious aspects. That's just like, welp.
Yep. But here's another really great subversion of this image. Because we all know. I forget the actual name of the statue. What was it? Because you know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm not sure.
The Virgin Mary cradling the dead Jesus.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I wish I had my old host Hannah here because she is way better versed in art history than I am. But yeah, she's out in on the East Coast right now.
Yeah, as soon as you mention it, I know exactly the piece you're referring to, but I couldn't tell you who made it.
I should know because I've seen that in referenced so many times in film, literature, and other pieces of art. But yeah, this.
I mean, that would drive you crazy too if you woke up surrounded by statues of yourself.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, how people talk about the second coming of Christ and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, look, if Jesus truly came back, especially the Jesus that we know, with all of his human memories back, how fucking traumatizing would it be for people to shove crosses in your face all day, knowing that's how you were executed and crucified on?
All right, Bill Hicks. I know where you got that joke. Don't even start.
Yeah, I will admit I stole that a little bit. But it's true, though. I mean, it doesn't take away from the essence of truth. And it's also fitting that, you know, that it was the Romans who who started all of it. There's another thing that really made me think, like, wow, can you imagine all the work that it took to make all of those for this shot? So remember, this is 73. There's no visual effects, no special effects, no nothing. Like, yeah, yeah, those things did exist back then, but all this shit was done in camera, man. So to see all that work is actually kind of impressive. And of course,
I love the strange juxtaposition between modern and ancient that is perpetually thrown into this movie.
Yeah, and of course how these women of what I believe is the Catholic Church. I think that's what he's referencing more specifically, but how it's kind of almost sexualized, and I think the word is fetish. We have a Catholic fetish.
And right here, we're calling out the priests.
Yep. It's so uncomfortable. But it's supposed to be uncomfortable, you guys. Remember, more movies like this. Because we need people to tell us these things, especially in the most intriguing of ways.
And this right here is just like, what?
What do you make of this image? Because there is some deep levels here, and even I don't know how to quite dissect this.
Well, I mean, for me, it's you know, by physically giving the eye, it is representing, you know, the inappropriate infatuation in a physical sense.
That's you just said it. It's he is basically saying to this young girl in a very uncomfortable way, "You are the apple of my eye."
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also think that I love here how we have a bit of Mary Magdalene in this woman here, especially with the cleaning of the feet.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure what the green. Well, there was green paint.
Again, it's just like that. That was weird.
Yeah, and you're also not entirely sure what the ape represents. I think the ape might represent the whole Darwinistic theory of evolution.
See, but here is an interesting question, because he's holding the statue of himself, but something that was mass produced. So now are we talking about, like, he is now carrying the sins of capitalism?
There's so many wonderful layers. See,
right.
Guys, if you're for those of you out there listening, start typing, man. Like, start commenting, because I want to hear. There's so many different ways you can do this. I mean, like,
well,
here.
And this right here, you know, obviously the old ideology that the oppressed love their oppressors.
And you could even read it as, like, you know, how people react to the Blue Lives Matter movement here. Like, we are literally dancing with the people that oppress us like this, or that we are courting with the police and the established figures or authority figures. There's so many ways you could do it. Read it, and look, of course, even the scripture is tainted,
decaying, and the actual place of reverence, not the glitz, not the opulence. The actual place of reverence has been forgotten and is decaying and is covered in cobwebs. But that is where he takes his representation.
Because after all, let's be honest, if Jesus did walk the earth again, he'd be in the seediest, lowest places, doing good. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this is.
How are you not?
Yeah. You know, that's right. You know, that's the other really refreshing thing, is that we're talking about all these deep meanings and, you know, ideologies of religious history and all this stuff. And yet, this movie doesn't take itself too seriously. It actually wants you to kind of laugh at it in a weird way. It keeps that silly playfulness because, you know, and because again, these things are deeply rooted in humanity. And what's humanity
right
without
here,
laughter?
I'm just like, I don't know where we went. But this kind of works in the modern everything is cake era.
It does. Oh my God, you're right. Everything is cake. Although I think that actually might be potato.
It could be.
I don't know. Honestly, there's so many weird things you could latch onto this. Clearly, we're not on enough drugs. Well, granted, you know, Jodorowsky has never shied away the fact that he takes a lot of shrooms and a lot of LSD, but he's never gratuitous about it. He always, because, you know, he's spoken about this a lot in interviews and whatnot. The way he uses drugs is a very mysticism and spiritual kind of way, and in a weird, it really is his religion. Like, you hear about all these stoners like, oh, fucking weed is my religion, man. For him, it truly is, you know. And in that sense, he's trying to, because he's tried to do this with all of his movies, really. If you've seen any of them. He tries to make experiences that you feel like you're taking drugs, but you're not really.
Right.
He's trying to bring that sense of spiritual, psychological mysticism to cinema. Which is why we need more movies like this. Oh, yes. The gold from above. And now he's ascending to the heavens.
But I like the fact that you see him very much eschewing, throwing away the offerings to the god, because it's like, no. And taking a knife, he's like, I don't want to give things to God. I want to be the god.
Or rather kill him. Sort of like a weird Oedipus complex.
Kill him, but to become him.
Maybe. Who knows? Or maybe just to kill him to say, fuck you. I don't know. But can we appreciate how hypnotically tall this is? I'm not entirely sure if it really is this tall or if it's just like a trick of the lens or anything. It's hard to tell.
And there she sits, still devoted, watching him.
Yep. Very reminiscent of the crucifixion of Mary Magdalene watching on. By the way, did you know that this guy was originally supposed to be played by George Harrison?
No, but that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm actually kind of glad that he didn't, because then it would just be
forever the weird Beatle movie.
Exactly. Because like I said, Jodorowsky broke into the film industry in like the late 50s and early 60s. Then he made El Topo, which was kind of his second feature film where he actually finally, sort of in his way, said he found his groove. And one of the managers for the Beatles saw it and were like, "This is amazing. Give this guy all of the money." And they basically wrote him a blank check of almost close to $1 million, and said, "Make this." And then one of the Beatles, George Harrison, was like, "I want in on this," but he was not okay with what he called the gratuitous amount of nudity in the movie.
Yeah, there is a bit.
There is, but again, it's for a purpose.
Well, but in human history, so often the sexual has been tied with the spiritual, that if you're gonna make a movie indicting and examining the pitfalls and dangers and prejudices that come with spiritualism, you really can't separate the two.
No. Man, that is fucking amazing. I don't recognize all of those symbols, do you?
No.
Okay.
But many.
There are some, but not as... Again, I really wish I had a couple more.
I can't tell you what they all mean, but I can tell you a lot of what religions they come from.
Yeah. And then we have the man himself. God, it's nuts to think that this guy's still kind of kicking. But yeah, so George Harrison just turned this down just because he just thought it was a little too gratuitous and whatnot. But in later years, I think he really enjoys this movie, and even Jodorowsky is like, man, I really kind of wish that we did get him, because that would just create a larger word of mouth. But
for sure.
But he had to dig his heels in to not compromise the ideologies, and you know what? I'm actually really glad that he did, and the fact that it's not George, because otherwise we would only see George Harrison in this, and we would be too distracted by the very well done symbolism and ideology that's going on throughout this movie. But I gotta ask one thing. Do you know what the camel means? I don't know what the camel means.
I
have no idea.
Specifically, no.
I have no idea what the camel means. It's weird and interesting, so I'll go with you with it, Jodorowsky. Also, can we just talk about the set too? Like, where the hell did they get this?
Well, I think it could be something symbolic of, obviously, the alchemist character here, the one being played by Jodorowsky, is clearly being shown to be of, Eastern mysticism type persuasions. But when you have some of those other symbols and stuff around, I think it could be indicating that it's like there is also a level of the religions of the Middle East, such as, Christianity, Islam, things of that nature.
Also, things like Judaism. Oh, and of course here we have the chakras.
Well, right, but there's already a lot of the Judaism being represented in the symbolism and the stuff on, her.
Yes.
And so I think it's just a matter of applying those, that he's trying to represent all those areas.
Right. I know that's like clearly makeup, but it always kind of makes me cringe a little bit.
Right.
I don't understand the squid though. I'm not entirely sure what that's a reference to, or if it's a reference to anything.
Yeah.
And then going back down. Oh, this sequence.
And the fact that we've been basically without dialogue this whole time until, do you want gold?
Now, this is the sequence that I really pitch this to people who haven't heard of it. I don't get the hippo. I really don't. I know there's got to be something, because there is a method. There is clearly a method to this madness, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. But, okay, I think this was also the scene that George Harrison's like, no.
Right.
Especially with those, I don't know what the hell those are. The finger thing?
The fingers?
Yeah, like, you gotta have a lot of trust there. But this is the sequence that I always try to, like, actually pitched it to people with. Like, there's a dude, I even remember when my fiance Katie saw this for the first time. She's just like, why? But yeah, I was like, this is the sequence where I'm like, yeah, this is how weird it gets. There's a dude who craps into a jar, and a mystic with weird chemicals turns his shit into gold.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, it's that kind of movie. Because that's how I usually try to pitch it to people. Is like, yeah, there's totally a dude who craps in a jar, and an ancient mystic, through weird forms of chemical experimentation, turns his shit into gold. It's kind of amazing. Like, if you don't, if the poetry is, if that turns you off, then that's where you realize that you're like, I don't care about you. You clearly don't have my sense of weird. Now, I want to know if he actually did turn it to gold. Like, if there's a chemical, like, if there's like a chemical thing going on here. I know this is mostly steeped in a religious kind of experience and whatnot. But
yes, but it's also, there's clearly some reference to drug use as well. In
oh,
this
heavy.
section, so
Big time. Also, can we talk about some of these props in this movie? Like, half of these props, I look at them just like, look, I don't want to take away from what your message and what you're talking to about here, because it is important. But can I just have these props? Because they're fucking weird and I love them. Oh, this is so strange, and I love it. But yeah, if you really don't get the, if I were to pitch this to someone, like from just this scene, and they don't really understand the poetry and the importance of turning one's shit into gold, and I don't want to talk to you. It's like that really great Stephen Wright joke where it's like I was in a job interview, and then I took out a book and started reading, and the guy says, "What the hell are you doing?" So I stop reading and I look at him straight in the eye and I'm like, "Let me ask you a question. If you're traveling in a car that's traveling at the speed of light and you turn your headlights on, does it do anything?" The guy says, "I don't know." And so I say, "Forget it. I don't want to work for you anymore." Genius, right? Stephen Wright's so good. But yes, you have turned your excrement is now gold.
No,
see,
it's the metaphor. It's like, you are shit too, but you can also be made into gold.
Exactly. And look, if you don't get the if the poetry of that is lost to you, then you might as well just give up on this movie, because you're clearly not worthy of the holy mountain and to take that climb. Also, you got to admire, because like I said before, we're dealing with a lot of deep philosophical and spiritual topics and whatnot, but he still keeps that level of absurdity. But can I also talk about how brave he is to not give a fuck that the camera is clearly in frame?
Right.
He does not give a fuck. Now, granted, in a room like that, it's really hard to change, and plus, this was the days before you could just digitally erase that kind of stuff. But the fact that he's like, look, this is the room that I'm dealing with. There's no actual angle that I can use that the camera wouldn't be visible, but I'm just going to try to minimize that and just be like, fuck it, I don't care. I admire that level of bravery, actually. Oh, this shit. This is so cool. So how well versed are you in tarot card reading? Because again, I've only done it a couple of times in my life, and like I said, my sister and my fiance are a little bit better versed in it than I am. But do you have any experience?
Not very. I'm aware of and have read about the major arcana and vaguely have a sense for what most of them represent. But beyond that, I have no connection to tarot.
Right.
I couldn't tell you how readings work or what table position means or any of that kind of stuff.
Right. Because, again, especially to someone who's not educated, like even both of us, arguably, even, it's really hard to figure out what the hell you're watching. But if you have like an understanding of things, you can actually be like, oh, okay. Because I actually remember showing this to my former co-host Hannah, and we're just sitting it down because I'm like, you gotta see this weird movie, it's amazing. And while she was watching, he's like, oh, I actually kind of, first time around, she hadn't seen anything, any clips, nothing. And she was like, oh, I actually get a lot of this because, well, she studied art history in college.
Right. It's a matter of if you know a lot of, art history, if you know a lot of religious history of multiple religions, there are things to get.
Oh, yeah. And a lot to unload.
Yes.
Because it's amazing. This movie's almost 50 years old. And yet we're still here talking about it today. And honestly, I'm just really glad that it's starting to pick up in popularity, especially in underground. Because as we talk about that we're overly saturated with media and whatnot, and we really are. But it's really nice to know that movies that have been made long ago and forgotten are now being brought back up again to be watched and discussed and talked about. And this one is one of the more popular ones in the underground circuit, in the weird art house circuit where, idiots like us can enjoy and dissect it. I take it you also read about Jodorowsky's spiritual prep for this movie, right?
Yes.
It's kind of messed up, isn't it? Why don't you fill him in on it? Because it's a journey.
Yeah, so in preparation for this movie, he spent a week without sleep under a Zen master's direction and lived communally with the film's cast for a month.
Yep. So they got to know each other real well, which is all I imagine.
But
there's
if you don't know what happens to a human body when it does not get sleep, it'll take you really weird places.
Yes, it will. Believe me, I've and this is beyond the levels of those late couple of nights in college,
Yeah.
Man, the movements of the camera, it's so simple. I know how it's done, but it's so cool to look at. And I really wish this kind of filmmaking would make a comeback. Maybe it will. Maybe it is out there and we just don't know about it. Because, I always argue with my dad, like, oh, nothing.
I love that suddenly we're getting into the planets.
Oh, yes, the planets. These sequences are so fucking cool. Every single one of them. It's amazing. Especially if you know, like I said, if you know the lore. But I remember arguing with my dad, like, oh, my dad's like, oh, it's just all sequels, reboots, remakes. Hollywood doesn't have any new ideas, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, Dad, are you kidding? Hollywood has more there is more original movies out there now than there ever has in the entire history of the medium. It's just that you don't hear about them because the major producers aren't willing to market them.
Well, it's because the major stuff they're going to market and that they're going to do, they are going to work on. They go by, metrics and data analysis now, and so the stuff that they're going to promote and put out there to try to make the big money is the stuff that's going to have the highest chance for success, which unfortunately is established properties.
Oh yeah, oh, absolutely. I always you have to understand that producing movies, it's gambling. It's high stakes gambling. That's what it is. And now we're reaching dangerously high levels of stakes with sorry, there's a truck going by outside. But there's now we're gambling with the billions, and that's kind of dangerous. Because it's one thing to be gambling with like a few $100,000, but now it's just, And it's weird because Jodorowsky kind of touches on that kind of addiction to gambling and high stakes and high society, and how anti-capitalist it is. I guess that's another reason why I really love this movie. Now, okay, so we were talking a lot. I forget, what planet are we on now?
Venus.
Okay, that's right. Because, yeah, it's strange how what planet are we on as we watch this is not
what
the weirdest.
Is this?
Well, it's yeah, that's a great song. But it's weird to say that me asking that question is not the weirdest thing I could be asking about what's going on here. It feels perfectly in place within the context.
Yep, he picked you, and now you are just another one at the back of the line.
Mm-hmm. Way in the back. It really is amazing that they got all these weird props to serve.
Made all these weird props.
Yeah, they made all this stuff and got all this for this film. And honestly, I really want to know where half of it went. How cool would it be to have like an original piece of prop from this movie? Yeah. That's yeah, this is like this you'd be like, man, it's crazy how much of this stuff is still relevant, isn't it? Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well,
I don't want
weirdly
to go
enough,
to a funeral with a moving corpse, but knock yourself out.
yeah, because although weirdly enough, if they could do that, they probably would. Isn't that the most fucked up part? Really, is like when you really take a step back from this. If we could do this, we probably would, because human beings are really fucked up in that way. And now I remember watching this, and I'm like, "Oh, we're on Mars. Mars is always the best. Mars is always." So, like, have you ever listened to? Oh God, what was it? The Planets by God. I should know this. Gustav Holst. Me cheating on Google. But
I don't think so.
Have you ever heard of? Have you ever heard of Gustav Holst's planetary musical symphonies, like one for each planet.
No.
Oh, it's great. Actually, Mars, there's a cue that John Williams totally took for Star Wars.
Interesting.
Yeah. And and also, like, I've listened to them all. Yeah, Mars is still like the best because it's the bringer of war. So obviously it's really cool and bombastic. So that's why when I saw this, I'm like, oh, I'm beyond curious what Mars is. And I remember
every time I see this scene, I'm just like, I want that suit in the middle. Oh my god.
Big lesbian energy here. Because
I don't care. It's a sharp suit. I want that sharp suit.
Yes. I think I remember showing this to him and like, oh my god. Like my fiance was like, oh my god, my Mars is a black lesbian warmonger. Fuck yes, this movie's awesome.
Who has a harem of male secretaries.
Right? Literally like a pit. But and the psychedelic weapons is really cool. Now granted, it really is like horrifying. It's like kind of horrifying that they make the weapons make them look as cool as they do.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be all about the obscenities of war and how, as you can clearly see, that we literally lunge into war over and over and over in an almost fetishistic way.
Right, but then they talk about it's a drug that makes them want to do that through illusions of grandeur.
Yeah. Because it's cool. It's a cool idea, but I'm also kind of weirdly disturbed how cool they make the weapons look here. She's arming peaceful protesters with psychedelic weapons.
Yep.
That shouldn't sound cool, but it's so cool here. Like, hell yeah, almost.
I want that gun so bad.
Dude, just get all three of them. Like, don't let the Christianity, because we've all seen the nunsploitation movies with that gun in almost every single one of them. Didn't like even Robert Rodriguez use that in Machete at one point? I think he might have. I'm not entirely sure.
Or something very close.
Yeah, I could. Well, I know. You know, there was like, please, Padre, can you do this? You want me to kill all these men? Yes. I'll see what I can do. Such a good. We're gonna have to do Machete sometime because that's such a big crowd pleaser.
Forgive me, Father. God forgives. I do not.
But yeah, man, like going back to what I was talking about, Gustav. I'm actually kind of, you know, when were the planets, written? I'm just.
I love the architecture of that house. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, of course, they got on some crazy good locations because I believe all this was in Mexico and whatnot. But
so.
So Gustav Holst was in like the late 19th century, early 20th century. So the planets were written around World War I. I'm actually kind of surprised he didn't straight up just use that music in this to show off the various planets. I guess it wasn't psychedelic enough for his taste. It was too classical and too rooted in the more traditional ways of filmmaking that obviously he eschews from. Or maybe he just didn't know about them. Who knows? Like, not every artist knows every other thing. You know? But how cool would it have been if he actually got to use Holst the planets in this? I'm going to have you listen to those afterwards because they're really great. They're really great music.
So is it me, or am I getting like vaguely Rudy Giuliani vibes here? Oh yes, mass marketed art. And how it's literally just bullshit.
But this is also a lot of the stuff that, Warhol was expressing at the time.
A little bit,
Was the
yeah.
absurdity and the ridiculousness of, modern art and the commercialization of it.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously took advantage of it with his pop art, but there was also a level of indictment of it.
Yeah, I think this is taking that indictment to its obvious conclusion.
Oh, yes, exactly.
And really going all out with it. And I mean really all out, because Jesus. You imagine getting extras for this? That must have been a really interesting job interview. Oh, boy.
Eesh.
That is one big-ass dildo. Oh, God. I'm sorry. It's like, and you think like, oh, why are you laughing? Like I said, this shit can get funny every once in a while. It's supposed to be like,
hilarious.
What the hell? If you're not laughing, then I don't know if you're entirely getting the point of all this. It's supposed to be a little bit just like.
Frigid. Oh my gosh.
So. Someone had to build this, remember?
Yes.
And is it also really weird that now you kind of want to have this in the sex dungeon that you don't own? Okay. I think that thing should have been wearing a condom.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of our least commented on commentaries, just because it all gets so bizarre that you're just like, well, I'm just going to watch this because.
Well, again,
what more is there to say here?
Well, like I said, oh, and of course the weird commercialization of Christmas, because that's a fucked up thing in life. This movie really does touch on all the shit that is wrong with people these days.
Well, right, but Saturnalia is a celebration that's always been associated with Saturn, and so when you look at this, it's just taking religious celebrations to their absolute insanity.
Yeah, because I mean,
look, the Pope hat. Come on.
Yeah, that's very true, and let's also be honest. Like, this is it's weird how this is still relevant in a very artsy fartsy way. But this is this is kind of Jodorowsky's rendering of a Macy's Day parade.
Yep.
And like early Black Friday sales. Man, that's strange. But yeah, like I said before, because how this movie was made is really disinteresting, just because what is on display is so interesting.
Now, is it me, or is this like a commentary on the Vatican?
Oh, I mean, to a certain extent, but I mean, also when you look at this, you know, she's out there imploring the young, getting them on board, but then the old have fallen under her spell and are now her minions.
Uh-huh. It's kind. Hey, isn't that the reverse clown makeup meme? Also, gotta love how she's literally cloaked by her generals with
Yes.
with elegant fur coats. Oh yeah, this is another thing that I know Jodorowsky's really uncomfortable with: the commercialization of toy guns and prepping kids for war, essentially.
Yep.
Because harmless as we make it out to be, that's kind of what we're doing. Yeah, a lot of people paint this as like a lot of surreal pictures and whatnot. This, however, is probably as down to earth as the movie gets.
Yeah.
Because this is not far from the truth at all.
No, I mean, it's very much an indictment of the militarization of everything.
And, of course, yeah, the military and not only just the militarization, but the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
Which it really is prevalent throughout throughout. It is a global thing. It's not just in the U.S. The U.S. is just the most extreme example, is because, you know, we literally have the budget to be the worst and most shameful example of that.
Right.
Again, that actually, man, Jodorowsky really was ahead of his time, because I know for a fact that that's early Facebook algorithming. You know?
Oh my gosh.
Uh... Oh yeah, Captain. That's so dumb.
But I mean, like everything they talk about here is like stuff that's actually done by propaganda and other such things.
Yep.
Just taken to a hyper scale, and it's, ugh.
And that's really the greatest thing that satire can really do, because it really isn't there to explore the nuances and the like small microcosm of problems that certain people take issues with. It's to exaggerate the flaws in the grander scheme of the system, to highlight, to reveal greater truths.
Yeah, and it's, you can only do this kind of level of, satire and indictment when you yourself have experienced the negative effects of it.
Yep. Well, oh, I love this one. This is probably the weirdest one, and I know that Jodorowsky's really having fun with this one. Can we just talk about the set? What is this set? Could someone please talk to me about this set? What is this movie?
It just gets so bizarre so fast.
Well, it is Uranus, so pun aside, this historically always was associated with the weird people. My God. I literally have nothing. I'm sorry.
That may be the most impressive merkin I've ever seen.
Although, weirdly enough, I can tell that these two are kind of living the best life that they can live. You know? It's weirdly wholesome, but at the same time, I'm just like, why? What is... I literally have nothing, Sean.
Yeah.
I really do want to figure out what the hell's going on here and what do these images mean. But in this scene, I'm at a loss for words. And you know what? I'm kind of cool with that. You know what I mean? Like, this is a scene where I'm like,
part of my brain is just like, who let Divine write a segment?
But yeah, for real though, honestly, this, like, as weird and messed up as it is, and as much as I don't really know exactly what's going on, there is one thing that does tie it all together, and it's how happy these two look. That's the one thing that actually kind of makes this really tolerable. And not just be like, what? I don't know. How does this make you feel, Sean?
Well, I mean, there just looked like there was half a corpse on the edge of that bed that I didn't notice before. There's the weird Napoleon, like, wall hanging earlier. It's like, you're trying to get a grasp on what's going on here. And, like, while the other ones, you know, their allegories are very obvious, here you're just kind of like, what?
Oh, how fucking cute is this? Knitting a snake a sweater. And I know we've seen it, like, that feels very, you know, normal nowadays. Because, you know, we see a lot of people doing a lot of knitting and whatnot. And I've seen snakes in I've been on the internet. I've seen a snake in a sweater, but I bet you what, in 1973, that kind of shit would never even occur to anyone. What? Okay. Also, can we talk about what a great way that is to social distance from now on? If it's slacking, then we're not doing it right. I forgot how poorly dubbed this was.
Wow.
This is clearly shot in a park or whatever, but can you imagine you're just like walking your dog and you turn and you see a film crew and you see all this shit and you just kind of look down at your water bottle and you're like, well, that's the last time I'm drinking from the tap. Nice. Sean, is it weird that I want cake right now?
A little bit. This is one of my favorite ones.
Oh,
This
is it?
so weird.
Oh, right.
So out there.
Yeah, this is
I
vaguely
am the
Mad.
chief of police.
Yeah, this is vaguely Mad Maxian almost. But isn't it just strange how?
It's just
Oh
like
yeah,
the
the
what?
giant Tommy gun.
Yes. Actually, it would be more referred to as a Thompson. It got really more called the Tommy gun when they had the circular drums.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, the obvious discomfort of this, but
Yeah.
the just absolute like, wow, somebody took Leather Daddy way too far.
You're totally right. Jesus Christ. Ah. Whoa. Okay, so
Right? It's the
you're
fact
basically
of like,
he's basically telling everyone that yo, cops literally take away our balls.
mm,
That is, dude. Why wasn't this at the forefront of the Blue Lives Matter shit? Like, no, seriously, why didn't why wasn't there like a Reddit post about this that went viral and made this movie a fucking sensation? Sean, we need to fix this. This is what we're here for. We are here for Jodorowsky's anti-authority figure kind of ideologies here. Because we want people to live good lives and keep their balls. Be them literal or lady or otherwise. But again, remember, we'll keep it deep, we'll keep it dark, and we'll keep it sincere and weird, but for the love of God, we got to tell some jokes. Damn. Well, if this doesn't look familiar, it's a little it's a Dalian trip dream of June 2020, isn't it?
well, I mean, look, I mean, the cops are doing what to the populace?
I also like how they don't actually bleed. They simply bleed paint.
Or other weird things?
My guess is there's symbolisms of peace and progress. A lot of fruit.
Yes.
That was cool. There's so much visual poetry in this. Because that's, I think, is another thing that this movie is so...
But see, I mean, and now here he's being spiritual in the aftermath of his brutality. And I'm like, cops!
For real. Like, they go home after, participating in a riot and beating the fuck out of a couple of people, sending a couple to a hospital, and then they go home to read the Bible.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's so strange because like this stuff is still relevant today.
Is this still valid? His planet is Pluto.
Well, again, remember this was the 70s, so and plus
oh gosh,
oh,
I forgot
of
about
course.
the Mickey Mouses.
So, man, even he is detractive of the mouse. Like, I've been saying it for years. Like, look, Avengers Endgame was fucking amazing. It was the, big event of the summer. But for the love of God, Mickey Mouse, shut the fuck up and sit down. Enough. You have enough. Stop it. Because, like, especially because Mickey Mouse tends to really... I think there was this article that I read about the new trope of the evil cute. Like, the cute that distracts you from taking away... that draws you in and makes you more susceptible to a more sinister kind of way of programming, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to... I wish I could elaborate more. I'm terrible with words. I'm sorry for those who are listening to me. But, yeah. Disney really needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
Also love that, again, Jodorowsky is like, all right, look, I can't really get, like, a big banquet or anything, but I can get, like, a basketball or volleyball stadium. So I guess that'll work. Because I'm sure he had in mind something a little bit more grand and elegant and whatnot. And it's not something as, that's clearly just a giant college school that they allowed to shoot for a day. This? This?
I'm just like, where
the hell... Okay.
This is Shades of Caligula, and I honestly don't know which came out first.
Oh, God, you're right. You're totally right. Actually, I think Caligula might have come out before this. No, actually, no, I was wrong. Caligula was 1979, so Caligula was after. You know what? Maybe because that movie was so terrible that the director just kind of saw this movie in an underground circuit and was like, yo, some of this shit was really fucking trippy. Let's throw that in our movie. Also, do you have like little touches of Midsummer in here too?
Haven't seen it yet.
Not gonna lie, I actually kind of want that as a bed. Like I said,
remember, that's not your bed. That's your apartment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
rest of the time you're working in the factory.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so depressing.
Right?
Wow, that is not far off of some of the housing units, that you see and read about. Wow, that's terrifying. Oh yeah, I forgot they totally had a helicopter just come in. Right in the middle of a bustling street in Mexico City or wherever this was. Did you actually ever see Caligula? I'm curious.
Yes.
Oh, you have seen it?
Years and years ago.
I think I got about 20 minutes in and I just I can't. I need some more friends to watch this with. I couldn't watch it alone.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, I'm not gonna deny that.
Maybe for a future fucked up February if we're feeling really obscene. But even I don't know about that because that is a just heinous movie.
Yeah.
It's sort of like trying to watch Cannibal Holocaust. You're just like, why? At least with this, it's like, hey, look, we'll be weird and kind of heinous and whatnot, but we're here for a higher purpose.
Right.
And we're also here to show the things that are wrong with humans and their society that they've built, and how that they could possibly be better. I wonder, this really makes me think that whether or not if Jodorowsky ever read Joseph Campbell's Monomyth.
Mm.
I'm really curious if he has or hasn't, because I don't know if he has by this point, because none of those tropes really appear in this. But I wonder if afterwards he ever picked up a copy and read it. Actually, I'm actually curious when it was printed, because I know George Lucas read it. Okay, so that was 1949. Right on. Man, this shit was so ahead of its time. Because I think, okay, so how many times have you actually seen this film?
This is, I think, my third.
Okay, yeah, this is my third too. And honestly, yeah, it's crazy how ahead of his time this movie was. Yo, this is fucking great. I always really hated money because it's so trivial and boring. And to see this was kind of amazingly jarring in the best way. But don't you just, and also, can we talk about how hopeful really this movie is? Because this is about no, it really is.
I like that one thief is still stealing.
And he's looking the most suspicious at any of them. But I really do love the idea that what this story comes down to being about. It's about an God coming down to Earth and coming to the greatest powers of the world and having them forego everything to ascend humanity to a higher yes, kill it. But to ascend people to a higher purpose. Dude, anytime Jodorowsky speaks, it's like super hypnotic and riveting, isn't it?
Yes.
There's a reason why we don't talk when he talks. Because this man is fucking brilliant.
And now there's more of those statues, all on fire and melting, like weird wax statues.
Yep. It's actually again, like, it's amazing to see that the money towards this movie actually went towards the shit that you're seeing on screen.
Oh, yeah.
And not just hollowed out in visual effects.
I am a big advocate of practical effects.
Agreed. Oh, that's so cool.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for visual effects when it is absolutely impossible to do practical effects.
Yeah.
But if you can do it, do it.
Yep. I'm just, because, again, I'm just, like, really humbled by this idea, even though it'll never happen in 1,000 years. Really 100,000 years, actually. But that God comes down to Earth, whatever version of God you call it, comes down to Earth and takes the most powerful people on the planet, or representations thereof, of the representing some of the worst of humanity, and stripping them down and building them back up to something higher than themselves in order to elevate those that even the worst of us can become the best of us. At least that's how I'm reacting to it. I don't know. What is there anything overall or overarching thing that you experience personally? Or are you just really hypnotized by this process here? Because I kind of feel it for you, dude.
It's been a while since I watched this, and this just looks like a very weird, primitive form of fire cupping, and I'm confused.
I think this is their trials of withdrawal. Maybe. Ow. But yeah, I don't know, have you ever had like an overall arcing reaction to all of this?
It's just one of those things where it's like so much is thrown at you that you're just kind of like, welp, okay. Like, I think you really stop having so much of an impact after a point just because it is so much.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hats in the background.
It's mystic juice. Of course it's not going to taste good.
Right?
Oh, and I love our
she's still following.
Yeah, the not Mary Magdalene character, who does have like a big bit for later.
Yeah. There is a reason to all this.
There is a method to the madness of Jodorowsky. And honestly, I really wish I had a couple more very educated people, both in terms of history, religion, philosophy, and spirituality. Because if we have all those minds together to decipher what the hell Jodorowsky was talking about, I bet we could come up with some really great ideas and have an even better appreciation for this than ever before.
Yeah, why did they become orange? I'm still just like
and you know there's a meaning behind it.
Yes.
Now this is vaguely Christian. The spear in the side. And yet I don't know, is this like a Zen or a yoga exercise? Because I know they were.
I have no idea.
I know that they were practicing that.
Even the cinematography lends itself to really great mood and atmosphere. Because using those fast shutter speeds to create that staccato in the movement. And plus, I can tell they also really exaggerated the colors later in post. So like a seeing eye dog, I think. Whoa. Yeah, so we had talked about how this movie's kind of an acid trip. This is the bad part of the trip.
Yeah.
All of that I thought was a really cool imagery. I don't know what it means, but I like but that's another thing is like half the time I really don't know what the meaning of the specific meaning of images and sounds that they're doing here. But I have enough of I think of a poet's instinct to kind of feel the essence of it, even if I can't explain it. Are you kind of feeling that too?
A bit. I mean, you get some of the stuff they're saying, but at the same time, you're.
It's a weird line to cross, I think, because, like I said, it's. I'm not. I don't. I mean, there are times where it's very clear as to what he's talking about and whatnot, but there are other times that I'm not entirely sure, and that's usually just because I'm not quite educated enough. But the poetry is still not lost to me, or at least that sense of poetry, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, you definitely he creates a feeling, even if it's not in something you can articulate.
Exactly. I think that's the best way to do that, because this ritual, I have no idea what the hell is going on, but I'm in. Like, I have no idea what the hell is going on in these scenes, but I'm still like, you know what? I'm fucking in. Just keep on going. Let's see where this goes. I think even when I was watching this with my fiance, I was just like, yeah, do you know what's going on? Yeah, I don't know what's going on either, but I want to see where this fucking goes. Yeah, this is intense. This is vaguely Buddhist, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, definitely the eschewing of earthly possessions, I think, is definitely more of the Eastern ideologies.
Yes. This movie is really a great marriage of both Eastern and Western philosophy and religions. And I think that's what makes this really great, because it truly is a universal experience.
And notice right here that I'm fairly certain that the thief has been missing.
Yeah. It's only
It's the 8th there, but he's the 9th, like, and the guru. Like, the thief was not in that moment.
Yep. Well, now they're all on the
yes.
top. And I think this became like the big poster image for a while. That is a fucking cool shot.
Yes.
And now that they are cleansed, they are ready to go to the mountain and achieve ultimate enlightenment. But of course, along the way, there's going to be a lot of temptations. And I remember how visceral this sequence was. Oh yes, the Christ thing of. Yep. Yeah, this shit was really visceral. Truth be told, he's not wrong. I think it reminds me of an old saying. Christ turned water into wine, but only the small supply. If he did it to the oceans, we'd be a planet of drunks.
There's a whole conversation to be had about that, actually.
I know, right? But
that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, well, what do you mean?
Do you know why he turned the water to wine?
It was because they had none. They had no wine.
Well, no, they asked him to because they were out of wine. However, the purpose at that time, if they ran out of wine, they would have had to interrupt the part of the marriage where the couple were literally off in bed for the first time. So his mom's basically like, can you please let them bang longer? And so he's like, it's not time yet. She's like, come on. He's like, all right, here's some wine. And he did it from the cleaning jars. So, like, that were used to wash people's feet.
Yep.
So it's just like, in this, like, first of miracles, you see him okay with the couple enjoying the marriage bed, okay with making some exceptions. Oh, like, it's a whole thing. Like, it's very showing how subversive this man's going to be.
I mean, that's the whole...
And we finally, and finally, this man enters again.
Yes. And because remember, in the early part of the film, when, you know, our Christ protagonist was left out in the middle of the street to die under a vat of bugs in his own excrement, he saved him and rescued him.
Yes.
A real friend. But yeah, he can't hold on to him because that's something he needs to let go. Like they said, you need to let go of your friends, your family, everything. Yep. Although, how fucking terrifying is it for this poor guy to be thrown into the water?
Right.
Because I don't think he can swim. Although I think that's why they elected to do it like this.
Yeah.
Although I think I remember reading that they actually did try to jump in. They all tried to jump into the ocean as a kind of cleansing sort of ritual.
And they all started drowning.
So the crew was too busy trying to rescue them, so they wound up just like cutting that pit out.
Yeah, they couldn't even keep good They didn't get good footage because the crew just had to try and save them.
So this is why you got to remember this is all movie, man, and this shit all has to be done practically. The turtles. How did he get here? The sea turtles did. Sea turtles, mate. But yes, now that we've gotten to the island, to the holy mountain, we have to deal with all the false prophets. The final distractions before they can reach it up top. Oh yeah, don't you also love how badly dubbed he is? Even from the wide shots, you can tell that this was all just dubbed in post. But again, don't care because it's the ideology that's supposed to be there. And plus, is bad dubbing the weirdest thing you've seen in this movie? Really?
Oh, not even close.
Exactly. So I don't care. Oh, pork. You know, it's really it takes you a moment to realize that these people are actually having a party in a graveyard.
Right.
Because they got upbeat music, it looks like a really good time, and then you realize, oh, they're literally dancing on graves. That's kind of fucked up. Oh yes, the false prophets.
Yes, there are so many.
The ones that want to be truly enlightened and have a better life, but have a skewed version of what it really needs to be in order to really progress. And therefore they become either lost in their own deceit or just spreading deceit to others. Is it weird that lady next to him vaguely reminds me of David Bowie? Between the hair and the outfit. Although I'm surprised David Bowie wouldn't have been involved in something like this.
I can see. And after what you said, I like that this is in here because he's also not afraid to indict things he himself enjoys.
Yeah. This is kind of him like denouncing the whole stoner culture of like getting high just for, just to party and to feel good and have that baselessness of the spirituality because the fact that they have the slide whistle just shows that this is silly, you guys. That's actually another really great commentary. Is like, there are those who claim that they have conquered themselves, but they fail to they fail to do what is truly necessary. It's only a half victory for them. There's so many things you can really read into.
Oh yeah.
I forget which I'd ask which mountain Jodorowsky actually chose as the location for this, but does it really matter, actually?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Although, there is one question that's always kind of baffled me a little bit, and it's their uniforms.
Yeah.
The blue uniforms always were a bit of a question mark for me. Because honestly, I feel like it only is there to ease into the final absurd joke of the film,
Right.
the big climax. Because when you, well, that's one way to make love to a mountain.
Yeah, and it's like, and we're back to this again.
Yep. But honestly, when you look at it, it's like, yeah, they're film crew set. It's a film crew costume that they're all wearing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can see, because maybe it's just me, but as a Star Wars nerd, I'm also thinking about the crew uniforms that they wore in Norway when they were shooting the Hoth sequences for Empire Strikes Back. Have you seen those? No?
I don't think so.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Wow, they're like really, really famous in terms of like Star Wars lore. That's just me. You can't, even in a movie like this, you can't. I can't shut up about fucking Star Wars. But yeah, they had these. The crew had actually really distinct blue uniforms that they had out that they wore out in the snow in the middle of Norway when they were shooting Empire Strikes Back, and it's kind of become like a sort of deep cut fan favorite thing to dress up as.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. I guess, again, I just can't fucking escape my love of Star Wars. even in a movie so weird and so spiritual and so amazing. I don't know, maybe it isn't that strange, because Star Wars is kind of a lifestyle. Even though it is culminated by the fucking capitalist mouse it is today. It's so strange. We're gonna have to do a whole nother podcast about just Star Wars and the weird relations we fans have with it. But enough of that. Let's go back to Jodorowsky, because this guy is.
And now there's a tiger.
Oh yeah, we gotta have a tiger.
And I like that it's almost like the scene I Tiger.
Yeah. Just be glad that Joe Exotic is nowhere to be seen. Thank God. Oh, I love the symbolism here. The fact that the horses are out in the middle of the open, but they're all stuck and can't move. You know, this reminds me of the wish. Like, I wish I had the man who wished for 1,000,000 pieces of gold and was pelted by them until he died.
Right.
Jesus. If I remember correctly, I feel like this was the sequence where they go through all each other's fears and anxieties. Again, we're back to the bad drug trip part of the movie. You know, I've seen weirder things in movies, honestly. You know, there was actually a college film of mine that, it wasn't mine, but it was a very well-respected colleague of mine. But he totally put in a clip of horse sex in it. I miss those days in college when you can get weird like this. Also, that's the other thing that this movie teaches us to do, is we need to confront Jesus. We need to.
You need to confront Jesus. What did
No,
he do?
we need to. Sorry, I just got really taken aback by that. But we need to confront the things that make us uncomfortable, because you notice a lot of films these days tend to be tend to be afraid of emotions and things that make us uncomfortable. Like, ooh, it's going to be just a little taboo. Like, oh, horror just, it's just going to be the right amount of scare. It's not really going to go all the way and truly disturb us on levels like this. Also, what are you screaming for, sir? Those things are fuzzy. But no, I'm just like, but don't you have noticed that as a trend these days? Is that we're really not interested in telling stories that make us truly uncomfortable because we just don't want to deal with it. Because honestly, a movie that takes advantage of these kinds of things, oh god.
This moment you're like, what?
Yeah, I got nothing. Actually, I feel like that's almost like, because like I was talking earlier about Jodorowsky's difficult childhood. I feel like that was him venting a little bit about his father.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's just my vague interpretation. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, oh, this. Okay then. But yeah, do you notice a trend of movies nowadays just not wanting to deal with anything uncomfortable or taboo or deeply internal? Like, do you notice that? How it's just become like this almost vague echo of movie tropes? Or is that just me? Oh, Jesus.
I mean, I can understand what you're saying. I think there's just so much. I think people have a much higher desire for success, and so they're not willing to take the weirdo risks, not even thinking that might bring them success.
Yeah. Still, I just wish more shit like this exists in the first place.
Yeah.
Because even, really wonderful artists who aren't recognized but still make films, they don't have this kind of bold sense of poetry. At least not from what I've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong if they're out there. If you're even listening and you have this kind of crazy vision about confronting the deep recesses of our minds, then please come to us and hopefully we'll have a couple of drinks and discuss this.
So this is one of the points of the movie that I love, though.
Yes.
The fact that an exception is made for genuine love.
Yes.
Like, that is equally valuable to this journey. And I'm like, I love that ideology.
That's a wonderful thing. And the fact that it was building up to that this whole time. Of course, what it was really building up to is probably one of the most insane endings to a movie I've seen ever. I could not believe what I was looking at when I saw this. And right here, where he just like does the stupid face. I'm like, Alejandro, are you totally just like trolling us? Are you trolling us this whole time? And he kind of was, but this is so weird. And I love it. I love this ending. This is probably one of the best endings you could ever think for a movie like this. It's so amazing. The great secret to immortality is film. Film lives forever. And he's totally right too, because like if anyone out there has ever made a movie, they know what a bitch and a half it is to make. And we constantly reassure ourselves as we're making this, basically cutting ourselves open trying to get it done. We're like, look, pain is temporary, film is forever. No! It is a film! Zoom back camera! Oh my god! So good! What? Unbelievable. He just breaks the fourth wall and said, look, this is just a film. You have to go out and live your own life. That is the pastor equivalent of saying the session is over, go in peace. Because that's what this movie really is. Like, can you imagine in like the 70s, sitting there in a movie theater with a bunch of people you didn't know, and then he says this, and you just walk out of the theater.
Oh yeah.
You would feel like a lapsed Catholic going to an incredible sermon, and then coming out with everything coming back to you in a weird sort of way. So yeah, that's The Holy Mountain, you guys. One of the great weird masterpieces, and you know, this is my third time watching it, and I still fucking love it. And you know, and now that I realize it, the more I'm watching it, the more I'm picking up on what Jodorowsky's saying, and the more I appreciate him, and the more I respect him, not just really as an artist, but as the insane fucking madman that he is. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of layers to this film. I mean, that's not even think. There are a lot of layers to this film. And that's one of the most enjoyable things about it, because the more you learn about different things in life, the more perspectives you can take from this movie. So
Absolutely.
It's a movie that, you know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend revisiting too often.
No.
At the same time, I don't think there's anything problematic in, you know, revisiting it every, you know, so many years, just because you'll pull something different from it. I mean, yes, there's the very obvious things about, you know, imperialism and capitalism and religions and the dangers thereof and the faults of humanity and
all these things.
As we're saying, you know, authority, all this stuff's in there, but there's a lot of other smaller, subtler things that are also going on that you can take from this, or that might pop up to you. So it definitely has enough nuance and layers to keep you interested.
And what's wonderful,
perpetually.
Yeah, and what's wonderful is because they're painted so weirdly and with such disassociative brushstrokes, if you will, that you can graft on entirely new meanings of things. You know, things that even thought of. Like, I'd like to see, you know, probably in like, you know, 2073, when this movie has its 100th anniversary, I really want to know what the people are going to take from this. Like, maybe one day there'll be like an entire documentary just for the interpretation of this movie, sort of like how, you know, Room 237 got released about just interpretations of The Shining. You know, either if they're totally valid or just absolutely batshit insane. You know, so I mean, it's just interesting to see all the perspectives and reactions to this one film.
It is, but unfortunately, I don't even know how to say this. I don't think you're going to get something like that towards this movie until a lot of the big themes this movie indicts are actually indicted or moved away from within mainstream society, which has not currently happened. If anything, we have just kept down that same road, suffered under the same yoke, and are worse than ever.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, I think the reason this movie holds up and is still such a valid piece that people enjoy is because it calls out a lot of stuff that I think people are much more aware of now, or not necessarily even that or necessarily, it's, how do I put this, that younger people have now become aware of, that may have been lost for a generation or two there, as
maybe
society moved in the direction it did. So,
well, you know what? Who knows? Maybe because, like, our generation has become, like, known as, like, the most overly educated and overworked generation in history. So maybe in about 50 years, when we're all super fucking old, maybe we'll be showing this to people and talking about it. Or who knows? Because honestly, even because the themes and the ideologies and just all of it, it was kind of relevant hundreds of years ago, even.
Well, yes, but it's I don't know. I think it's a matter of, a lot of the. It's not that they weren't relevant, but things are not perpetual. Things reach a climax. Things have a half-life.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I think a lot of the dangers and stuff he's talking about and the things he indicts in this movie, are very much at a point where it's like, yeah, they're still relevant, but it's becoming even more relevant as people are looking at the damage it's wrought and the things it has done to people. And I think that's true not only of, with certain religions and the way they've been handled, but also very much in the way that, capitalism, militarism, imperialism, all these kind of things
colonialism
have been dealt with. And yeah, and so I think this movie, because, obviously it does a whole lot of things, but because those indictments are very obvious and front and center in this movie, as well as a lot of other stuff, but because those are here, I don't think this movie's ever going to stop being relevant.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it's always going to find new audiences, because it is pointing out the kind of stuff that is still happening.
I guess all I can say in the end is I really hope by 2073, when this movie turns 100 years old, that it's going to be revered as the thing that it was trying to be in the first place. Because I think that's
one can only hope.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying there, and yes, that would be a good thing.
Yes. I mean, right now it's already starting to gain traction, and it took about 50 years for it to really become kind of mainstream, but not really. So maybe another 50 years it'll have like this big resurgence of some kind. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it might be overly optimistic of me, just because I love it so much, but only time will tell. So maybe if I'm still doing this 50 years from now, we'll come back and do a hard revisit on it. Hopefully we both live till then.
I think the important point, though, is for a movie that, was not something big budget, mainstream, successful of its day, to still be being talked about almost 50 years later in and of itself is, very notable.
Yes.
How many movies from 1973 are people still talking about?
Especially ones that didn't do well.
Yeah.
That's the real key, because because remember, the early 70s, that was kind of the forming of the new Hollywood era. That's where we got The Godfather and other really great movies like that. And it was kind of a golden age for artists to really express themselves, because the old studio heads of the golden age were retiring, and now the corporations are taking over. Corporations didn't know what the fuck they were doing, so like, you 20-year-old art film student, make a movie, we'll pay you.
Right.
Go do it. I wish I missed those. I wish I was around for those days. I really do. Yeah, so that's why we had the new Hollywood era, and this was kind of in that same area, but not really. Like, it was clearly its own thing. But But the point is that yeah, we need more movies like this, and I really hope that it's going to have a real cult like a true mass cult following in another 50 years from now. So we'll see.
Well, I think it's kept enough of a cult status for long enough that it's not going anywhere. And as I said, because of the stuff it touches on, I think it's going to stick around. So yeah, it's very much a film that, has an importance, and I don't think is, I mean, gosh, if only from the fact that it will be revisited in, film history classes alone.
Yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere.
I agree. I think this movie is going to be around for a long time, even if it is under only, weirdos and freaks like us.
Right.
So, well,
that's also one of the ever-changing things, though, because while the people who may first find it are the weirdos and freaks, every weirdo and freak does tend to have some normal friends that they will then show it to.
Damn right. And that's what we're here for. So honestly, I think we can wrap it right there, because next week we actually got 2 movies from Daniel Radcliffe, and one of them, this next one, I can't tell you how fucking excited I am about this. This exists, okay, you guys? It exists. Daniel Radcliffe plays a farting corpse in an Oscar-worthy performance. An Oscar-worthy performance of a farting corpse. This is real. That is going to be next week. We are going to get fucking weird. And I really... I can't wait. For real. Are you excited, Sean? Because I'm excited.
Oh, very much so.
Fuck yeah, dude. So, thanks a lot for all y'all who've been listening. Hopefully you guys aren't totally turned off by the weird and freaky stuff that we like. But we'll be back for more and freaky deaky stuff. Not too sexy, I promise you. Don't want to scare y'all away. But we'll be back next week with Swiss Army Man. It's going to be a really fun time. And maybe we'll have one more weirdo. Have Daniel Radcliffe give one more weirdo appearance. But that's for next week. So in the meantime, I've been Sean. Wow.
Tim?
You know what? Let's just run with that. I'm not cutting that out. We are staying with that. Just for fucked up February, I'm gonna be calling myself Sean, and you can call, and I'm calling you Tim, just to make it weird. I'm not cutting that out. Okay, so on that note, this has been Never Watch Alone, where you'll never have to watch a movie alone again. Peace.